Welcome to Inform TV. I'm Ellen Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota. Today we're going to take a look at a number of things that are in the news and that Inform TV have been involved with, and we're going to start first and foremost with the local Cenex station here in Alexandria, Minnesota. The fine folks there at Farmers Union or Farmer something oil company, I should have looked, sorry, they were kind to me, but right on 29, you guys coming from Fargo or Fergus Falls or Sauk Center, Detroit Lakes, get down in this area, pull off the freeway and just go north on 29, 27, 29, I guess they call it, going Broadway right through Alexandria. It's only about a mile or so north of the freeway. Fill your car with gasoline there, go in the convenience store and look at the piece of pipeline I've got inside the store there that the fine folks there at Cenex have been. And if you're listening from Park Rapids or Wadena or some other, help me by going into your local Cenex station and thanking them for a little help. Now remember, Cenex are no advertiser that takes any position on what I say here at Inform TV, but people are starting to understand that we're trying to get you people informed on what's really going on, and the good folks here in Alexandria at the Cenex station and the stockholders and board there were kind enough to let me put that piece of pipeline in here. I'll flick a couple of pictures of what you'll see when you go in their nice store there, fill up with gas and go inside the convenience store. Here I've got a chunk of that 36-inch pipeline, the piece of pipeline that our government, our president, our Secretary of State, and many of our Minnesota congressional people or people in the area here that support his actions are delaying getting that piece of pipeline in the ground that has the capabilities of moving some 800,000 barrels per day. And we have to understand, people, when it comes to crude oil, the Bakken oil field in western North Dakota, they believe in 2 years they are going to have 1 million barrels per day just out of that. Then we've got the oil sands in Canada. The truth of the matter is, if our government was doing what we as citizens are struggling with, high-priced diesel fuel, high-priced gasoline, high-priced home heating oil, they need to be putting 2 of these in the ground. One from the Bakken itself and one coming in from Canada. There's no question about that in my mind when I look at the data, and especially when we have the uncertainty in the Iranian situation in the Persian Gulf there. This is a no-brainer. And when you go to Cenex there in Alexandria, you can feel this pipe is almost an inch thick. And this particular piece of pipe already runs from Joliet, Illinois up into Alberta, Canada. I've got a little sticker on it. I didn't have it on when I took this picture, but the fine folks at Winning Edge Graphics made me a couple nice stickers to put on there. And kind of shows what's going on. I didn't take any political position or mention any names, because I know the fine folks at Cenex are just concerned about serving the public well and want the people informed that here's some things we should be looking at, and you as individuals, you express to your leaders what your thought is, but after looking at this piece of pipeline. The sad part we have government officials telling us it's an environmental issue, and the reality is we are trucking crude oil out of the Bakken. We are railing crude oil by rail cars and unit trains, and the same goes for Canada. And here we're stopping a pipeline that is far less polluting than a truck or a unit train, rail train. And we already have some, I've heard numbers anywhere from 150,000 miles to 200,000 miles of pipeline in the United States already. And I want to give you a little personal history on this particular pipe. This one went by my new house when I lived in Hector, Minnesota, and I had farmland there that probably went across 700 some acres of land I had at the time. Watched this thing go in the ground, talked to these people, and they put this in the late 90s or about 2000. The people that I talked to on this particular piece of pipe, I talked to people that had been in the pipeline installation business for 25 to 40 years. That's all they had ever done. Followed pipelines around the United States and around the world and worked on them. They had told me they never saw a pipeline this heavy and this strong and this well engineered, and this was the first one that, in fact, the union guys were pretty upset that was actually welded by robotics. And so we're talking about personal knowledge of watching this going in the ground. This particular pipe in southern Minnesota had a minimum of 6 foot of cover on it. So when you go in a Cenex station there in Alexandria, fill up your car with gas, get some pop and candy and whatever, feel how incredibly thick it is. And this particular piece of pipe was properly put in the ground. I even believe in southern Minnesota they were putting rock down underneath the thing, if I remember right. But at any rate, I've got to keep moving along here. We'll show you some additional pictures here of it, and as it sits there in a station, and I encourage you to get in Cenex, and no matter where you are, buy some gas from Cenex and tell them you're buying because you listen to Informed TV. That'll be most helpful to me. I'll give you a little history on this piece of pipe. It cost me a bunch of money to get this thing organized and taken care of, and custom sandblasting out there at Westport. They were kind enough to be involved in it and blast it. They got a nice setup to do whatever you need done, trucks or whatever. When they call about sand, they buy sand by the semi-loads, fine sand. And the people out at Carlos Corners here north of Alexandria, the Muir brothers, Scott and Todd. Here's give you an idea what this piece looked like. This particular piece was used as a fire ring, went through some extreme heat, unintended uses, so it's got some pitting, but it sat outside for 15 years with no coating, and the coating that was on it got burned off, and et cetera, et cetera. But when we look at this particular piece of pipe, these guys today don't want spills. They just want to get product to market. And I went online, and I encourage you to go to Keystone Pipeline Project, Google that. But I'll give you a quick little rundown of what I personally experienced. And I wish the President, I wish Hillary, and wish our congressional people in Minnesota and North Dakota that are not on top of this thing around the country, look at what we're putting together today. And even the people at Keystone that think I'm a nobody and don't want to respond to me ever. But here's how big these chunks are. This was familiar in southern Minnesota with me. You can see a semi. Look at these pipes, people, how they're being handled by excavators. I'm not sure. I think they're about 60 feet long. We experienced this same thing in southern Minnesota here over a dozen years ago. You can see how they set up. They put pumping stations in place, whether it's crude oil or natural gas. Now they're getting away from excavators. They're doing some experimenting with trenchers. In fact, I talked to a trenching company that wants to do some work with it. See how this pipeline was laid on boards. See how incredibly big it is. We got welding crews around there, inspection crews. See how it's coated, like I was talking about. Here's where robotics weld this piece of pipe in. You can see the incredible heavy welds. Here they're doing some mechanical welding where they get a little bit of a bend in it as they go their route, and they've been doing this for decades, people. I think you'll find it extremely interesting how they x-ray these wells, they finish these wells correctly. This thing is laid out and then they put it into the trench. Quite a process. These are welding locations on each thing. They had an old school bus, if I remember right, doing it in southern Minnesota, but you can see how they handle it, and they start their turning process and that kind of thing. Here they're putting a heavy epoxy on the weld area. The pipe itself already comes from a factory. This is, I can't think of the type of welding they do, but they bend flat into this round area. And they're bringing, making sure the coating is on there. I wish I could send this to the president. I think I'll try to send this to the White House or on some of our congressional delegations. You can see how they've got cat tractors here with booms allowed to drop it into the ground. There's just no question in my mind. And I was a landowner. We were fighting with trying to get just compensation. The group that I was working with, in fact, they even ended up with more money than I did, but it was a situation where these things are needed in our society. You can see these pipes laid out here, and it's a no-brainer, people. It's not a Republican Democratic issue. It's just the issue of where is leadership in our country today. And we've got people that have not been involved in projects. They don't understand what it really takes to get the job done today. And I think this piece is very helpful to us, and when we look at that, so I encourage you, we'll try to post this online at Inform TV as well, but make sure if you watch it in whatever city you're in, you get people to look at this. And I think it'll be clear enough on TV for you guys to see this. But if you don't, go to Keystone Pipeline, Google it in. You can look at a lot of stuff yourself, and I encourage you to send. Now, we've got the importance of this and why we really thank these people at the local Cenex and why you've got to stop at a Cenex station and buy some gas is because we finally are getting some companies that understand we have to inform our elected officials about what we need. I mean, we're sitting here now with the Persian Gulf deal that I talked about, and what are we doing? We've got a big supply of gas. But now remember, as far as green, remember, I'm a Chevy Volt man. And if I ever get these Chevy dealers to give me a few bucks, I'm going to show you why the Chevy Volt, especially if you're a senior citizen, and especially if you're a daily commuter, it's the car of the future. But we'll jump onto a couple other areas that I think you'll find interesting this week related to some of the projects that I'm looking at. Now, unfortunately, I must have pushed a wrong button here on this, but we've talked here before about energy and watching what is happening with energy policy, whether it's ethanol, whether it's crude oil, whether it's natural gas. And today they were talking, one of the analysts were finally talking about natural gas, how incredibly cheap per BTU that is compared to crude oil products. And the reality is we need to put some pressure on our elected officials to get them to wake up to the fact and start listening to some people that have had experience with this thing. And here's something that you people that buy furnace oil this past winter, we've been lucky to have a warm winter, but we talked here a while back about diesel fuel and distillate fuels, which is both home heating oil as well as diesel. Now, when I was a kid, diesel was way cheaper than gasoline. It was way cheap. Home heating oil was way cheaper than gasoline. Today we have just the opposite. But once again at Informed TV, we're talking about failed policy from our government. And when you're going to these county conventions and this district conventions, you people that are actively involved, whether you're in the Republican Party or Democratic Party, Independence Party, you want to bring these topics up. And here's one especially you want to bring up. Whether you're a trucker, a farmer, a small businessman, look at what's happened with diesel fuel. We are exporting, people, the equivalent of diesel fuel of this pipeline. This pipeline, I said, with crude oil will pump some 800,000 barrels per day. Here we are now. We, in the past, and I had the chart and I couldn't find it, that EIA website, I mean, it's like dumping a yacht in the swamps of northern Minnesota. I mean, there's great data in there, but to find it the second time or third time takes you hours. But anyway, here's what's happening. For years, I showed here a previous program, and I don't know if I've got that on a website or not, how we basically didn't export any diesel fuel. And all of a sudden, because of what's happening with Texas intermediate crude oil being cheaper than Brent crude oil, the refiners are making big margins exporting finished product into the world market, because the crude oil here is about anywhere from, historically in the last 2 years, anywhere from $10 to almost $25 a barrel cheaper. So their margin refining diesel fuel and exporting it is incredible. And once again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but in my research project, not only are we exporting diesel right now, our refiners are making the highest cut in relationship to diesel fuel. They're taking as much diesel as they can out of a barrel of crude oil, and historically incredibly high. It used to be the cut was always focused on gasoline, but because now we're exporting diesel fuel at an incredible profit, these guys have switched, and they're refining to get as many gallons of diesel fuel out of that barrel of crude oil as they possibly can. And I'll try to post that on my website, informtv.com, or bring that up in an upcoming program. But here's what I want to show you. We're sitting now where we're exporting this chart. Unfortunately, the other chart that was better, but this starts in 2010 and this goes to presently. We've been exporting 1 million barrels of diesel fuel per day recently in the last 4 weeks. In fact, maybe I can bring up this chart a little higher to show you. Yeah, in June of 2010, July of 2010, we were only exporting, and this was historically high, 600,000 barrels per day. Now, as I bring it up here, folks, we're at the point where in January of 2012, we exported 1,072,000, 1,053,000, 1,034,000, 1,015,000. This is ridiculous, people. We're the biggest importer of crude oil in the world, and what are we doing? We're exporting finished product. I mean, if you've never been get on the phone and call your congressman or senator, this is something that you should be unglued about. This is something, stop into that Cenex store when you buy some gasoline and tell them Informed TV sent you there, or into Alexandria and look at this piece of pipe, and I encourage you to all pull off and do that, buy some gas, and explain it to these people. We've got to do something about this. We cannot have a chart that we're exporting diesel fuel, so the Home heating costs are up for people, as well as our trucking costs relate to transportation for food and everything we're involved with. It's just absurd that we have in this country allowing people to export diesel fuel. And so when we look at some of these numbers, folks, we're in a situation where when it comes to energy, I don't know what's going on in Washington, but it's obviously we have some people that are allowing money to get ahead of sound policy that affects us all. And it's just incredibly sad when we look at issues like this that we're not addressing. And I encourage you to look at these issues and call your congressmen, call your senators, and address the issues, because it's just sad on what is going on here. I just shake my head and continue to wonder, where are we at? The situation that we have going on right now is a situation where we have lost the concept of leadership. It is so incredibly sad that leadership is like it's something we don't want. And how can that possibly be? We just have to ask ourselves what's going on in this country. And when you're involved in these caucuses, when you're involved in your county conventions, you have to ask these people what's going on here. And it's absurd what is going on. We're just not looking into the issues that affect us all. The other thing that I want to talk about a little bit when you go to these county conventions and congressional district conventions, whether you're in North Dakota or Minnesota, is the fact that we're in a situation where we have to address the debt. And one of the things they're talking about is Social Security. Extending this payroll deduction is absolutely absurd. We have Social Security recipients that are going to need to be continued to be paid, especially with the economy the way it is here and around the world. And yet we're kind of saying, well, if we get $500 or $1,000 per family, it's good policy. It's not good policy, people. And the reality is we need to find revenue in other sources, but that's one revenue source. It's not a tax. It's something we're going to be pulling out of in the very near future. I'll give you an example of my own little situation. I'm old enough now I can draw Social Security. This thing, I work my weekend 40-hour job, or work 36 and get paid for 40, but I work every Saturday night, Friday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, and get paid for 40 hours, but work a 12-hour graveyard shift. And in this experience, for my own personal W-2, I saved about $650. Yet at the same point in time, for Social Security withholding, they took out about $1,200. And with the average person in the United States in that $1,100 to $1,200 bracket, just think of that. If I would start on Social Security at that rate, I paid in $1,200, and I'll start taking out $1,200 per month. Just think of that. And we have elected officials to say this is going to stimulate the economy. All it's going to do is bankrupt that Social Security fund much faster than it should. And just think of it. A person my age that can start taking out $1,200 a month when for the full year I only contributed 12 year. Sure, it goes on a 35-year average, and I always pushed things so I didn't pay as much tax as I probably wish I would have paid now to get my Social Security end high, but I was able to progress in my business history because I kept my taxes down, but I never experienced these incredible tax breaks people are getting now. I think they're absurd. And at my point in time in business, yeah, there was definitely times and definitely tax policies that we should change. But to say that we should have a flat 15% tax, or to allow these people that are making in these hedge funds and or CEOs that get stock options to pay only 15%, it's absurd, people. We have to have a balanced revenue, and those that are privileged that make good money are going to have to pay more than they're paying right now. And no matter what party you belong to, this nonsense of we can grow our way out. When they talk about growth at these conventions, people get up and laugh at them, because the world has changed. We're not going to have 2 jobs for everybody in every family. The robotics, the examples we showed here with putting this piece of pipeline in, mechanization, people, has changed everything. The internet has changed everything. Yet our people in Washington and the people on business shows like Fox Business or CNBC Business, they're not in touch with the real world that we're facing and that we're going to be going forward with. So when we get to these conventions, you folks that are active in your political parties, you have to start speaking out. You have to talk about, we have to have this pipeline put in the ground. It's energy efficient. It is ecologically sound. This pipe is not going to break, and if it does, it is monitored today with wires going down the side. It's set up to run for 100+ years, just like we got pipelines in the ground that are that old already and still working. So take some of this stuff to your conventions you're going to be heading to, and stop at Cenex and thank them for helping Inform TV. And make sure you get to the Cenex station in Alexandria, Minnesota, and look at that piece of pipe and thank those good folks at Cenex across the region for helping Inform TV show you some things that are actually happen and things that need to be done. Thanks for listening to Inform TV. I'm Alan Repke, Alexandria, Minnesota.